Hi, and welcome to the Shakopee Chamber Podcast. I want to thank you for joining us today. My name is Angie Whitcomb. I'm the president and CEO of the Shakopee Chamber and your host for this fun little show. As you know, we started this podcast back in June as a way to connect with our members when that wasn't being encouraged. And, we've got the gift of gab and we've got members who will join us on this program. So that part was easy, but it is really only possible because of the generous support of our sponsors, our members who step up to help us do this program. And this quarter, our sponsor is OBriens Public House, which is a great little Irish pub located right at the front door of our historic downtown here in Shakopee. They serve up great food, great drinks, and it's always a fun atmosphere. And I'm going to encourage you right now to stop down or visit them online for dinner, for takeout, and to take advantage of a really great special they've got going on right now. It's a gift card special, and the holidays are coming. And I heard some crazy number that there's 12 minutes before Christmas Eve or something like that, which just gave me total anxiety. But right now they're making it easy. If you spend $100 in gift cards for your friends and family, check off those gifts off your list, you get a $25 gift card for you. And God knows when these holidays are over, we're all going to need at least $25 worth of some good O'Brien's food and drinks. So make sure you check them out at o'brienspublichousemn.com. So welcome. It is good to be back. Some of you have noticed we've had a few weeks off. My right hand guy, the brains of this organization and the tech guru, Tim was on a well-deserved break, enjoying some time with his family up north and doing a little hunting. But I've heard from a few people that they've missed us, and that's nice. But don't worry, we're not going anywhere. We're keeping this little show around. So we're back after a couple weeks. Not much has happened. Kind of slow news week. Not the case at all. We've gotten through the elections. Kind of, depending. We're taping this on Wednesday. Depends on what happens in Wisconsin today. May or may not be over if we're still counting ballots. And like a Category 5 hurricane, COVID is making an ugly, 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 impactful resurgence here and everywhere, kicking us right in the backside again. And it's amazing what can happen in a few short weeks. We are joined again today, a return guest. Welcome back by Shakopee School Superintendent Mike Redmond. And we invited him back today because we've got some stuff to unpack about one of the election day outcomes that, quite honestly, has left more than a few people scratching their heads and, more importantly, left the school board and the administration with a ton of hard decisions to make and a lot of work to do. So welcome back, Mike. We're glad to have you back here on the Shakopee Chamber Podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, Angie. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah. Well, we had you, couldn't remember the exact date. It was either late September, early October, to talk about the importance of the operating levy. And now we're here to talk about the fact that it didn't pass and figure out what happens now. And there is a lot to unpack in that, a lot. So let's start by giving the listeners a little refresh and a little background on why the district went forward with this ask in the first place.
Yeah. Well, if you turn the clock back and even turning it back to election night, November 3rd, we've been a little bit busy with, you mentioned the COVID pandemic since then, but
Lord, we'll cover that at the end of this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been quite a whirlwind, but, if we go back, there are financial challenges facing the district, and we talked a lot about that. And we've actually, we've been doing some preparation of this year's audit. And like we thought, we're going to come in fiscal 20 roughly balanced. But it's the next year. It's this year we're in right now. It's the 2021 school year.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of where it becomes imbalanced. And when we started off, we were projecting, roughly about a $2.5 million deficit for this coming, the year that we're in now, fiscal 21. And then if you continue to go out, and doing, conservative both revenue forecasts and budgets, that continued to accelerate, as every year out from there. And left the school board, left district leadership in that position where you need to tackle that challenge. And so going way back to December, January, started further analyzing the problem and start thinking about, hey, what are the paths forward, and doing some of that preliminary work and getting things put together. And then obviously hit by the COVID-19 pandemic in the middle of March, and that kind of put a pause on things. and then realized, the financial challenges aren't going away.
No.
That added certainly a degree of difficulty to the process, but the board unanimously approved really a two-pronged approach in July, put together 1.6 million, well, 450,000 in budget cuts for this year, another 1.6 million next year, no matter what. And those were, adjustments that we felt needed to be made in light of the situation. And, I would call them permanent budget cuts. And then, they also unanimously approved putting an operating levy, a phased-in operating levy on the ballot November 3rd, with the caveat that if that did not pass, which is, as you pointed out, that's what happened, then we would make an additional $5.4 million in budget cuts next school year, bringing the total for, the 21-22 school year to, $7 million in budget cuts. And I'll pause there and catch my breath maybe.
Yeah. Well, and after a number like that, you need to catch your breath. Mike, we had talked about this before. And one of the things that stood out to me is that, lots of school districts were going to the voters for operating levies. This is not an uncommon ask. It's not that the Shakopee school district has failed miserably and now they're crawling on their knees with their hands out. And one of the statistics that sticks out to me as a parent, and just as a taxpayer, right, that we spend $1,250 per student less than the metro average. And that says, did I get that statistic right?
Yeah, it's actually a little bit different. We receive, compared to the average voter approved operating levy, that's the $1,250 per pupil that they get.
Yep.
We actually, when we look at all the revenues and expenditures on the operating side of the budget, we're actually about $1,800 per pupil less than, the metro average, that comparable districts. So it's even worse. No,
that's unconscionable to me, because I go straight to, what does that mean for the students? What is that their experience? I mean, are they sitting in a cardboard box? And I know that's probably extreme, but so if we're that far behind, if I remember right, you mentioned it just now too, it's a phased in approach. So we weren't going to say, let's make up that whole deficit now in one big thing. It was staggered. What did that number mean per taxpayer per year? Like, how would it have impacted us? Why do you think it didn't pass?
Yeah, well, you talk about the phased in levy, and you talk about, over 4 years it would be phased in. And you mentioned the $1,250 mark, which is the average voter approved operating levy in the metro area. Well, after 4 years, the total that we were going to phase in was $1,000 per pupil. And it was going to be, 400, then 300, then 200, then 100. And when you take it over, the average home in Shakopee over the life of that, and I pulled that data up in front of me, so I had it. The net tax impact in year one was actually going to be a negative. We have some construction debt that is paid off, and so that comes off.
So no impact to the voters this year. None.
No. There wouldn't have been. And so the net annual impact, year one on that average home was $75. If you take that out over, 4 years, the net annual change in taxes adds up to $198, per year.
Per year. So for me as a taxpayer in Shakopee, if this had passed, I would pay an extra $200 a year to make sure that our kids were getting what they needed and that we weren't having to make these draconian cuts.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow. That seems like a really small number. I mean, I like, this is just me speaking, right? But if I think about the dumb stuff I could spend $198 on, probably do spend $198 on, that would have no impact to the positive in my community. It's embarrassing. I probably did it today without even realizing it. And that would get voted down. So why do you think this didn't pass? I mean, was there misinformation? I mean, you hear a lot of rumors that it's still cleaning up the scandal of, however many years ago. Why do you think this didn't go through, Mike?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons. And I think first and foremost, whenever school districts run voter approved levies of any kind in general election years, there's always challenges. There's a
Yeah.
lot of noise. And, and I think I probably shared on our previous podcast and probably 100 times other places, just my goal of having people be well informed in terms
Yeah.
of what we're asking for when they go in and vote. And that's a really, really tough task in the best of times, and especially in a presidential election year. You throw in a COVID-19 pandemic, and it's disappointing. We get kind of that anecdotal feedback of people who go, I didn't fully understand the question on the ballot, and I thought my taxes were going to go up by $1,000,
Oh my God.
a year. And it's like, no, that's the per pupil revenue. And
Yeah.
then they go, well, you should change that wording on the ballot. And we go, well, we can't. I mean,
Yeah.
that's statutorily in there. And so even pieces like that, where I think well-intentioned people, they get hesitant sometimes when they see that, and it's a tough challenge. And
Sure.
I think, and I've told my team this, I think they did an absolutely fantastic job of communicating.
Mhm.
I told them that before the election day. I told them that after the election day. It's tough work, but
Yeah.
we had a lot of people do just about everything they possibly could to try to get the word out. And I think at the end of the day, roughly 22,000 voters, I think we had a fair number of those who came in and really weren't as informed as they could have been or should have
Mhm.
been in terms
Which
of
is
the output of the
unfortunate,
levy.
because I saw the information your team put together, and we shared it on the chamber site. We were sharing it through our social media. Um, and it was so well put together. I mean, if it could make me understand it, it was, it's like, why wouldn't this pass? But yeah, I'm hearing that same thing in town too. Like, oh, I can't believe that didn't pass. It's like, well, did you explain it to anybody? It's that whole word of mouth. But I do agree. I mean, of all the years to have this on the ballot, it's a general election. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and Shakopee had another referendum that was getting a lot of noise too. So it was just kind of the perfect storm, but now it has created, oh my God, a horrible situation. So what's next? What kind of decisions, and what are those cuts? I mean, you threw out that tremendous number. Put that into jobs and people for us. Tell us what that's going to look like, because that's what we're facing now.
Yeah, that's really tough to do. And and you and I talked before the
Yeah.
podcast. I mean, it's challenging in a lot of areas, business owners and others. And certainly that's the challenge we're facing. With the 7 million in budget cuts, we're a service organization. 80% of what we spend our money on is people.
Mhm.
And so if you're cutting $7 million, you're cutting people. And that's the part. I was at the office waiting for election results. I don't think they got into like 1 in the morning. And when I drove home that evening, that's the part that, and I'll try not to be emotional here, but that's the part that hit me.
Yeah.
Is here we have people who I get to see day in, day out, just busting their humps, doing everything they
Yeah.
possibly can in an amazing set of conditions right now. And the reward at the end of the year for a number of them is, sorry, we don't have a spot for you next year. And we will there'll be 50 classroom teaching positions, another 10 or so teachers. It hits everywhere on the budget. It hits support staff, it hits administrative staff, it limits our ability to provide transportation. So any of those pieces of providing a service, there's just a reality that we have fewer dollars to spend. We'll do it. I mean, we've always talked about, there were two pathways. One I think was a little more palatable, a little more positive.
Yeah.
The one that we're on, unfortunately, is not that one. It's the one that's more challenging. But I think I put out on Twitter, and when I talked to our leadership team and other folks here the day after the election, certainly, a lot of students, a lot of families, a lot of teachers, incredibly, incredibly disappointed. But also, we talked about, we'll always do our best to serve our community and serve the kids, and we'll do that day in and day out. But and two things that sound really different can be true at the same time. But there is a reality we will not be able to do everything that we're currently doing next school year. That is
Yeah.
just simply not possible.
So what are I always go back to the students. I mean, it's horrible. And I think this is just my lens as a mom. I think about what I want for an educational experience for my daughter, and it's not to be in a classroom with 40 kids. It's to have really good quality teachers, and it's to have opportunities for orchestra or choir or the things at theater, the things that interest her that are going to help round her out versus I can read a book and take a test. What are some of the things that our kids are not going to see next year?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head first and foremost. It's and not to dehumanize the process, but it's a math equation. If you have fewer teachers, you have more kids in every classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we had said, we will eliminate the school sponsored middle school athletic programs, and we'll eliminate the 5th grade instrumental music program, and and we'll do our, where it really changes is, it's the number of persons, it's every decision you make. And, a lot of times there's a judgment call, and it's based on the resources at your disposal. And even in, over the, and I've been here a little over 2 years now, we kind of got, back to work in terms of implementing and paying coaching stipends and a lot of activities. Things like, we were both out at the mountain bike course over at Quarry Park, and and when you have a reasonable budget and set of resources, you can take a look at those things and go, yep, that would be a great addition and serve kids well. When you don't have access to that, it impacts lots of little decisions day in and day out, and you just end up saying no much more. And it's not even more than you'd like, more than I would argue is right, when you're trying to serve kids. And so we'll again, like I said, we'll figure it out. We'll do the best we can. We'll have to say no a heck of a lot more than even now. And back to our, we talk about the $1,800 less in revenue and expenditures, compared
per
to the
pupil.
per pupil compared to the districts we compare ourselves to. I point to that and go, we've been doing an incredible job of providing value for the money. And that's the part, if there's one piece that disappoints me in terms of the messaging or the communication, and I get it. We're in a very different context with the things that have happened here in the not too distant past. But that is our reality. We are currently doing what I would argue is an excellent job in terms of value for money. And our school, what we're able to provide kids, looks pretty darn similar to the other schools that we compare ourselves to. Because we've done a good job of managing resources, and we're basically telling you that our hands are tied now. We're really out of opportunities to kind of make adjustments within our our current setting.
That's heartbreaking. So, to your point though, the positive, you are doing amazing things. One of the things that the chamber has been, at the table on since its inception is the academies. And I think especially looking at even before COVID, the future, and it's going to be about jobs and the workforce, and the academies model was so cutting edge on making sure that Shakopee was kind of leading the way. And in my role, I get to see other programs throughout the state that are, I get kind of smug. I'm like, oh, that's cute. Have I told you what we're doing in Shakopee? My colleagues love that. But I mean, the Academies program is an incredible model, and it's launching. And I know the work that Jenny Ames and Elizabeth Deere are doing in terms of bridging the business community with the schools and the benefit back to the business community. It's just working so well with this new reality we're living in, at least for the time being. And I'm talking budget, not COVID. We'll still get to that. What risk is there for that model? Because Mike, I'm telling you, as a state economy, that's God, this, like, I keep going back to that $198, and I just don't get it. It's frightening. But what does that mean for the academies?
Well, I think right now, I mean, we're committed to providing that academy experience. It's at the core of who we are as a high school, and it also extends all the way down, into our early elementary as well. But what happens even within a program like that, where your ability to serve kids is diminished, and the class sizes will increase there. And there we try to do what we talk about is, academy purity. In other words, if you have a passion for one academy, we try to, get you in as many courses that are that academy specific as we can. But there's a cost to doing that. And I've, explained to people, we're in essence running kind of 8 schools within a school.
Yeah.
The 2 freshman academies and the 6 other academies. And, to do that, yeah, you could lump, for example, in some people, and and I've had this conversation a lot in the last few months, there are people out there, and thankfully it's a real distinct minority that go, well, why don't you just lump them all together and do what we used to do 20 years ago? And to me, I have zero interest in doing that. We're living in a time where, what our high school students need is different than it was 20 years ago. I think, the academy model more than gives a leg up to our Shakopee students. And it's something that as a community, I'm very proud of. And it's doing things, we always want education to change. And then, Shakopee has changed it with the academy model. And now there's people going, wow, I don't know if you should have changed it like that. Well, I tell you what, anybody that's looked at that, who knows anything about education and anything, and and I look at Shakopee Chamber and all the folks who are part of your organization who recognize it and go, this is the kind of thing we've been talking about for years and years. This is exactly what we should be doing for our young people, and we all benefit as a society down the road. So
it's a very straight line. If you train the workforce early on to understand what the jobs are, what it means, the skills, and I'm not just talking about that's the beauty of this program. It's not just go through high school, go to a 4-year college, and then figure out what you're going to do. Like, the time to figure it out is now, and to train them now, because we are facing a serious workforce crisis, and we had the solution. We had the answer here in Shakopee. And I think it's, you're right. It is amazing to hear the feedback from the businesses. This is what they've been asking for. Right? This is how you fill a pipeline. And I'm a recovering recruiter. I know pipeline struggles. This is how you fill it, and we're doing it. So I hope that we can continue to, as a district, honor that academy purity, because that's what the business community needs. And you can't teach the way you did 20 years ago. You just can't. The world has changed. Students have changed. The jobs have changed. Technology has changed. Accounting principles. But we reviewed our audit today with our auditors, and we had to implement this new accounting rule. It's like they change every year. But if the schools are teaching what we did 20 years ago, those kids are not coming out ready or skilled to hit the workforce at all. So hopefully we can keep that going. But so, if all of that isn't frustrating enough, your teachers are not in school today, nor are the kids. It's Wednesday, the 18th. They are transitioning to take it all back virtual. How are you guys? First of all, your poor teachers. If we could hug, I would just start a free hug line at the school. How is that transition going to look for the students and the kids? And how is it different now in November than it was in March? Because it's different, I'm sure.
Oh, there's a lot of things that are different. Yeah, without a doubt. And I agree. Our teachers, our staff, they've just done a remarkable job. And they, and I think I know I've shared this before with others. I'm always appreciative of the work they do. I don't even have words for how appreciative I am for what they're doing, how they've been digging in day and day out. And and as you know, too, we worked really, really hard to start in our district on time, at the start of the school year in a hybrid model. And I was just telling somebody earlier today, in fact, I think it was John McBroom. He stopped by. So somebody who knows a little bit about, running a school district. And I said, I was just thinking about how nervous I was before that first day of school on September 8th. We're going to launch this hybrid model. Oh my gosh, we think it's going to work well, but you just don't know. And I tell you what, it worked incredibly well. Our students did a great job. Our teachers, our staff, everybody did. And so it is, it's certainly with a heavy heart that, we've run into this, just incredible uptick in COVID-19 cases in our county and in our area. And, there really wasn't much of a choice to be made there. That
No.
we were right on the cusp of not being able to run the place in
Yeah.
certain areas. Just the number of staff and students that were starting to face, either being infected or being in a quarantine. And so we are now implementing. They're getting ready over the next today and I guess the next 2 days, our teachers to launch what we got to work on our naming conventions in the district. We came up with IHD for in-person, hybrid, and distance, and we never got around to coming up with a better name. But we're now calling this Distance 2.0 Plus, and it tells us, yeah, again, you're right. We've kind of taken the Apple one, and I don't know where the plus comes from, but
I love it. It's catchy.
well, in the summer, we took all the feedback that we had gotten in the spring from students and staff and parents, and brought our teachers and staff and our learning, teaching, and equity folks in, and put together Distance Learning 2.0 and took that feedback. And then we started the school year in hybrid. So we put that Distance 2.0 on the shelf, so to speak.
Yeah.
And we actually completed Q1. And really over the last couple of weeks, as we knew it looked like we were going to head to distance learning, we said we better take that off the shelf, dust it off, dig in again. And we took what we've had about 24% of our students, grades K-12, opted into Shakopee Online. So they've been entirely online since the first day of school. Well, we've learned some things during Q1 through that experience. And just other places. And so, the team's been taking that, and that's the plus, over the last couple of weeks, it's fine tuning that again. And so I'm very confident that it's a much improved version of what was run in the spring. The spring was, hey, we'd like you to do something you've never done before. Hey, you got about 4 or 5 days, have at it.
Figure it out.
And people did a great job then, but it was not flawless, and we learned a lot. And now we're making those changes.
Well, that's good. Yeah, it's certainly, someday we're going to look back on this year and be proud of what we've learned and be proud of what we were able to accomplish. And, I hope laugh about it, but, we're talking today and I'm going to bring this up. I was going to kind of bring it up in my closing remarks as well, but I know where your heart is on this. And I said, we're recording this on the 18th. It is 4:30 p.m. as we're recording this. And in 90 minutes, our governor is going to go on air and announce more rollbacks because this pandemic is, it's about to cripple our capacity to treat it. And that's really, where the code red status comes in. And, I look at the businesses that you love and support in this town and that I certainly love and support in this town, primarily our restaurants and our hospitality and our entertainment. And they have been doing everything right and smartly. I mean, those were the words of Commissioner Grove today. They're creative and innovative and doing everything right and everything we ask, and it's still crushing us. And now they're going to be asked as of midnight Friday to hit pause on operations for 4 weeks, takeout and delivery only. And my heart, it's gut wrenching. My heart is breaking. So I'm going to ask you as a well-respected and connected person to help the chamber get the word out. We need to do the great Shakopee Takeout. I mean, in this round, it's like, well, we've been through shutdowns before or cutbacks before, but there's no stimulus. We're out of stimulus. There's no help. It's coming Friday and but here's how we're going to help you part to that sentence. And that's what's killing me. We're all a paycheck or two from our world's changing drastically. And now we're asking an industry really to just hit pause on their income for conservatively 4. I mean, I know the plan is I have my notes here, to start things back up again on the 18th of December, but none of us know what's going to happen, right? So I am asking you and yours, and I know I'll probably run into you too and take out because that's what we like to eat. Like, I'm not going to apologize for that. I know you're not either. But to support our local bars and restaurants and to eat out, to take out, to get in your car, go pick up your dinner and support them and tip them well, like be ridiculous. I mean, it's the season to do that anyway. It's the holiday season, but now more than ever, they need us. They need our support. So I'm calling on everyone who's listening to this to really, wherever you're listening from, support your local bars and restaurants. They're hurting so bad, and they've done everything they've been asked, and they've done everything right. And they're being asked it again. So we as a community need to step up and support them in any way we can. And that is by doing business with them. Get gift cards. I mean, good Lord, we could all be done with our Christmas shopping tomorrow. Go buy a ridiculous amount of gift cards, because that's the gift that keeps giving. You buy it now, and then people come in and they're going to spend that gift card, but they're going to be enjoying it and they're going to spend more. And that's how we're going to help each other through this. So that's my plea. I mean, are you with me, Mike? Are you going to tell all your friends?
I'm absolutely with you. And, my wife and I are empty nesters now. I wish, it would have been nice when the boys were in high school.
Yeah.
We could have helped out more.
Yeah, they eat a lot.
We're doing the best we can to eat. And we've had our own sort of interesting rotation. And, it was nice to catch, Scott O'Brien was on WCCO a couple days ago in the morning. And they're talking about, maybe their own delivery service. And I tell you what, we've used their the order online, the pickup, and, we've eaten out on that patio when we could this summer. And lots of other places have been in that rotation. I wish Carol and I could eat and drink a lot more than, we're because
come on, Mike, dig deep. You can do it.
Dig deep. Yeah, I put on enough weight in the last 6-8 months.
I surpassed the COVID-19 months ago.
But no, in all seriousness, that, it is that time. And, we talk about, we're all in these things together. And we talked a lot about the schools, and obviously that's a primary focus of mine, but it's all about our community in Shakopee. And it's the, I would encourage the same thing you're encouraging. Please, especially our local businesses, our small businesses that, this is, not to borrow, kind of those cliches that get thrown around in sports, but it's unbelievably important. It could be the difference between staying in business and going out of business, and we all lose. It's not just, you don't just lose, oh, we lost a storefront. No, it's all interconnected, and that's that part. So no, we've made extra special efforts. I have a hard time, and no offense to DoorDash, but I struggle with the word dasher. I got a little bit of old school in me. My wife makes fun of me, and then we'll talk about, the dasher will be here in 12 minutes. I'm like, seriously, we got to call that person something else. But even still, you're right. We still tip the dashers well, even though I got my own issues with the name.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You're clearly a genius at naming things. And for me to be giving you a hard time about that, I mean, we're still the Shakopee Chamber Podcast because we couldn't come up with anything more clever. So I don't know if you and I are the ones who can rename that. But yeah, I mean, as long as, they're going to our restaurants and picking up the food and taking it wherever, I applaud that. So yeah, it's a crazy time we're living in. And I can't wait till, these vaccines get rolled out. I mean, we can't lose sight of the fact that there has been some good news, right? But in the meantime, we cannot let up on supporting one another. And I would also, totally going off script here, Mike, I would also ask everybody to take what you just said. We're all in this together. And what we need to exercise now more than anything is a little grace with one another. Now is not the time for anger. Now is not the time for partisan BS. We are all so fed up with that. We are all in this together, and together we're going to succeed, or together we're going to fail. Because you made a really poignant remark just a second ago that it's not just like, oh, we lost that business. No, then we probably lost somebody who lives in our community, and we lost students in the school, and we lost a taxpayer, and we lost that person who shops at another business. The ripple effect is tremendous. Nobody is in a vacuum. Nobody, is going through this alone. We're in this together, and together we're going to get through it. But we can't, I remember talking to Brett Martin, who writes for the Shakopee Valley News months ago, about how when this first started, now is not the time to lose our civility. And I think that ship has sailed, but now is the time to consciously bring it back. And especially in this holiday season, God, be kind to one another and just support one another, because that's what it's going to take. So,
Yeah. Well, and I completely agree. And I obviously, I connect some with Michael Morris over, at St.
yeah.
Francis. And they're not prone to crying wolf. And if we're listening to the medical professionals in our community, in other words, I mean,
Yeah.
that concern is real. And
It's,
it's about supplies. It's about being able to staff.
yeah.
We assume, because we've lived in the United States of America, I have for the bulk of my life, and in Minnesota, that
Yeah.
hey, there's always a hospital bed when we need it, and there's always a great nursing staff, and there's always great doctors. And this is the first time in my life
Yeah.
here as a Minnesotan that I've ever even contemplated, wow, there might not be that
Yeah.
if I were to need that, or a family member. And that is a real sobering thought. So again, it
Yeah.
is part of, we're all in this together, and
Yeah.
we need to look out for one another. And I agree. It's we have an opportunity. Yeah, we whatever's happened over the last few months, fine. We can continue to dwell on that, but we can start looking out for each other
Yeah.
and doing a better job of that today if we
Yeah.
want.
If you want. Amen. Well, I hope everybody listening wants and does, or at least remembers this conversation and thinks about it before you have another moment. But I want to thank you, Mike, for coming back and joining us, and for having this really important conversation. I do have one question I realized I forgot to ask you after that fantastic close. Can you take this back to another vote?
Yeah, that was a really good, quick answer. When it comes to voter approved operating levies, the only date they can be done on is the first Tuesday in November. So certainly, that's the other part of we're going to cut 7 million next year. That's not the long-term fix. It gets us down the road a piece, but we shared as part of
Yeah.
in all the meetings we held. You get another 3-4 years out, we're looking at another 3-4 million in cuts. And then we would be looking at that kind of repeating itself really every 3 to 4 years after that, if things don't change in terms of the, state level support and in terms of student aid. So certainly all options are on the table. We're just kind of, regrouping,
Absorbing
dealing
this
with the
still.
COVID stuff.
Yeah.
And we've got 2 new board members that
Yeah.
come on in January too. And so it'll be a new board, and we've got a lot of work to do, kind of getting them up to speed and
Yeah.
making them part of the team. And we'll certainly be taking a look at all options, early next year.
Yeah. Well, 48 weeks or 50 weeks to go until we can do this again.
There you go.
Mike,
Yeah.
thanks for joining
Wow.
us. In the meantime, you be well, and I'll probably run into you picking up food somewhere, hopefully.
Sounds good, Angie. Stay
All right.
well.
You too. And thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you again next week. In the meantime, take care of yourselves, support your local restaurants, and just be nice to one another. Have a good day.